water can drain out on top of the permafrost, and that's the disturbance due to the fire. The second is the change in the water balance. Now, over the last 50 years, and particularly in the big draining since the mid-80s, over the last 20 years, the precipitation at Whitehorse has not changed. So for the water balance, we want to look at the difference between the precipitation and the evaporation. The precipitation hasn't changed, and the summer climate hasn't changed. So it's unlikely that the evaporation due to solar radiation has not changed. What has changed in this area is the ground cover. Now, when you're up at the top there, you'll see that there isn't very much ground cover, but there are some little shoots and there are some little plants on the surface. And in the bottom over there, you'll see there's a lot of willows. At the next place we'll go to, you'll see that there are roses and a lot of ground cover. When the soil in the 80s, there was hardly any ground cover. The only thing around the surface here were a few little trees, a few willows, and bare ground. When the surface of soil, which is bare, becomes dry, then it's very difficult to conduct water up through the soil. And as a result, there's hardly any evaporation. Once plants grow on there, the plant roots go down into the ground and they can draw water up and evaporate it through their leaves. So in this area, I suspect that in the last 20 years, the evaporation has increased significantly. And as a result of that, the water balance is now in deficit, which is the natural condition for this area. And that means that there's actually less water that is available to be stored in these ponds. So what these ponds are representing is also the reduction in long-term storage of water in this area, now that the ground cover has recovered and there is a significant amount of evaporation. But it's difficult to determine the difference between the two, because I'm not an expert in evaporation. And we'd have to have somebody to come and work here for a summer on evaporation, or 2 summers or 3 summers, and they would also need to find a place where there was bare ground. Now, to do that, I'd have to cut lots of stuff and get a big permission to create an area where we'd try to have just bare ground and relatively little, and determine what the evaporation would be. And there's quite a lot of rigmarole if I was to burn part of the Takhini Valley, and if the fire got away on me again, then I'd be in trouble. In fact, the reason for the Yukon having a fire service is largely due to the forest fire in 1958, because it came so close to Whitehorse that there was a fear for a while that Whitehorse would burn down. The same thing happened about 8 years ago. There was a fire quite close to town, and people worried that town would burn down.